5 million people in England can now book an extra booster jab. It's open to anyone who's over the age of 75, care home residents and those with weakened immune systems too. Scotland and Wales have already begun their own spring booster programmes. It's timely because Scotland has just recorded its highest ever figure for patients in hospital with COVID. So let's put this in perspective, get some advice from GP Dr Natalie Rout, who joins me here in the studio. Nice to see you, Dr Rout. Thanks very much for coming in. Firstly, talk us through the spring booster programme. How is it going to work?
So it will run similar to the previous booster programmes. You should be contacted by the NHS by a letter if you are eligible for the booster. So that would be anyone over the age of 75, but also anyone over the age of 12 who has a weakened immune system or is considered to be immunocompromised. And then you go about booking it just via the national booking system online. So it should be as easy as it's been.
Now, there might be those saying, well, I don't fall into those categories, but I'd still like a booster. Do you think, no, you're frowning, that's not going to happen for now?
Not at this stage. There aren't plans to roll it out for the whole population yet. There are talks about an autumn booster. We just have to wait and see whether we have the capacity and whether there's any indication to roll out a fourth booster to everyone.
Will our immunity, those of us who've had the 3 jabs, but don't fall into the categories, will that immunity be on the wane? Because we know that cases are rising.
Absolutely, that is a concern. We do know that for 6 months after your booster vaccine or your second vaccine, whichever you've had, your immunity does decrease. But at the moment, we're not sure how much benefit a fourth booster would have for those of us who don't have immunocompromised systems. And that's why there's not been a push for everyone to have this fourth booster.
OK, so those who'll be getting the spring booster, they just have to wait. So you don't need to get in contact with your GP. No. You just wait for that email or text or whatever to come through. Absolutely. And then you can book something.
Yes, they will be rolling out in the next few weeks. If, of course, you think that you've been missed, then yes, please contact either 119 or your GP practice, but we do not have direct booking at the moment. We still advise everyone to please try and relieve some of the pressure off our admin teams and just wait for your letter to come through.
I want to ask you about that rise in cases. I mean, we're talking about Scotland and the jump in cases there. How concerned should we be? And is it because perhaps people have changed their behaviour, not wearing masks anymore, or is it because of this new subvariant, BA2, that we're hearing about?
I think it's a mixture of both of those things. We can't say for certain that it's just one of those factors, but it is a bit of a concern. Even though the majority of people who will contract COVID, maybe for the first time, the second time, or even the third time, may be okay, those people that are over the age of 75, we're seeing increased admissions, increased cases, and they are certainly going to be at risk of becoming more severely unwell. Now, for the rest of us who may not become unwell, that still poses a problem because that puts pressure on our hospitals. If there's increased pressure on our hospitals, our waiting lists may have additional pressures on as well. So it could impact all of us, even though it might seem like, oh, it's just flu-like symptoms, I'll be fine. Don't forget that we are seeing increased hospitalisations, which puts pressure on A&Es, it puts pressures on hospitals, special infection control measures have to be followed. So this could have an impact on our hospital waiting lists, which are already too long.
So what advice would you give to people? I mean, do you still advise your patients to wear masks, for example?
We do, and I'm certainly still wearing a mask when I see my patients because I do see vulnerable patients in my clinic. What I'd advise people is to try and avoid putting yourself in positions where you're at high risk of contracting the virus. Don't forget that approximately 1 in 20 people in the UK currently has COVID. So being in enclosed spaces, not great. Make sure ventilation is good. Try and wear a mask on things like public transport. And if you are worried about catching COVID, keep something like a pulse oximeter at home to monitor your oxygen levels. Make